Today we're going to talk to London and Mason, who are Tech Fellows. The full name of the fellowship is the Undergraduate Technology Innovation Fellowship, sponsored by the Roberts Family Fellowship. In other words, a very, very long name, so we're just going to call them Tech Fellows for short. And Harvard Business School, we're going to call HBS for short. Thank you so much, London and Mason, for being here today. So, Mason, I'd love to know what is the Tech Fellows program? Essentially, what are some of the features and who's a part of it?
The Tech Fellow program is like a collaborative, sort of like cohort based like fellowship between the School of Engineering and the Harvard Business School, HBS. The program mostly consists of some seminars about once a month with some normally HBS faculty, maybe covering some cases that they've done, getting really familiar with the case method, as well as doing I think it's TVI Tech Ventures Immersion Program, which is sort of a boot camp where you sort of take a venture idea, you do some research, you develop it, you pitch it to venture capitalists, and then you can also take Harvard Business School extracurricular courses. So it's sort of like the electives of HBS. You get to take, I think it's at most two of those during your fellowship, and which is really amazing to get to know more about the HBS case method. And then I think there's been about 45 students kind of go through the program at this point, sort of three cohorts, normally about 15 sort of students per year.
What's your background and how did that lead you to be interested in applying to this fellowship?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm from a really rural town in East Tennessee. So most of my intent going into the like application process was to sort of work on my entrepreneurial skills, particularly in ed tech, because I kind of wanted to take that and sort of apply like these entrepreneurship skills that I thought I could get from HBS, and like how that intersects with tech and engineering, and sort of apply that to like kind of bringing about like more educational equity in rural areas in the United States. So that's sort of where I'm coming from.
When I was in second grade, I decided I wanted to create robots to help people in natural disasters so that people wouldn't die when natural disasters occurred. And when I got into college, I started working on this idea, but found that it was really tricky because I'm not an engineer at heart. I'm very much a coder at heart. I like seeing very clear error messages and knowing what's going on when stuff breaks. And so I found it was fairly difficult, me not being an engineer, to actually get some of my ideas to happen and come to fruition. So I started working along trying to figure out how to help people like myself who might have good ideas but not be able to implement them. And along this kind of journey, midway through, I came across the Tech Fellows program, and it seemed like it'd be perfect for me because I was really interested in learning how people think about businesses, how people start businesses, how like the business world kind of works. And so I applied and was lucky enough to get in, and that's kind of like my background and story and why I decided to do it. In terms of like studying, I'm studying computer science and philosophy as a joint, and I'm really interested in the using AI to help people listen to people better, figure out what makes people upset, that sort of thing. So.
Now, it's so interesting that both of you have a technical background and are interested in doing social good. Is that true of all the fellows? What are the fellows generally like? I know they're both MSMBA participants, and this fellowship is for undergrads. So, what are the people generally like?
Yeah, so I remember when I first got into the program, I was really intimidated by the other fellows. So all the other fellows, they're amazing. It's a pretty, I would say, diverse group of people, like in terms of like what they study. So we have some people who are technical, some non-technical, and that doesn't really like represent like any challenges or anything. In fact, I think it actually creates more value in the program because you get to interact with all these different perspectives. So I haven't really interacted that much with MSMBA students, but the interactions that I have had have been amazing. So they're also really amazing people. They have mostly technical backgrounds because they're MSMBAs, but that doesn't mean that they're like trying to necessarily go into technical work after their masters. They're all super down to earth though. They really do like to interact with undergrads, and I know that the MSMBAs that I've gotten to know, I still feel really close to. So.
London, I know you received funding for your startup for the summer through this program, as well as participated in HBS Core, which is this online class offered at Harvard Business School. What was the application like for both of these things, and how was the experience?
So the application process was really nice. Is basically talking about what you want to do as a startup and what you would want to be working on over the summer. So I talked about an idea that I'm still working on right now called Tech Relief, which is a business. At the time, I pitched it as kind of an Amazon for people who are creating technology for first responders. And I said I wanted to spend the summer working on talking to more people who are developing technology, which I was able to do. I found two people who were working on technology that could potentially be used in humanitarian scenarios. So one of them was a little bit less first responder based. It was talking guys working on creating hearing aids. And then the other one was working on an AI to listen to first responders and help them fill out forms afterwards. And if you get past the initial funding round, they basically just give you money for the summer and say, you go do what you think would be the best for you and your business. So that was really wonderful. I spent most of the summer iterating through a bunch of different business models, thinking about could you do Amazon for services? Could you try to pull together a team of first responders and whatnot? So I iterated through a bunch of different business models, tried to find one that would fit me the best. And that's what I came in with this fall semester, now having a way better idea of what business I wanted to start, why, and having some more interviews and information on how to back that up. Doing HBS Core over the summer was also really nice. It took about 10 hours per week, but also provided a little bit more structure. I tend to have a tough time just given open, do whatever you want type mandates. So having the structure of HBS Core and then working in interviews and other things like that into that structure was also very nice. So, and I learned a lot about business stuff and things that I feel will help me understand businesses a lot more in the future, which is great.
Mason, I know you took Scaling Tech Ventures last spring, which is a class at Harvard Business School. What was it like, being in a classroom full of MBA students and taking a class at that school?
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, I would say that the energy in the HBS classroom is really amazing. So the professors, they bring a lot of energy. Mine was first thing in the morning. I don't remember exactly what time, but I always woke up a little groggy and made the walk across Weeks Bridge. And by the time I got there, I was really cold, but then the professor would walk in and it was just amazing, the energy that he brought to the discussion. I think that I walked away with Scaling Tech Ventures with one, I think, a really significant sort of case study of what has gone wrong, what has gone right in sort of different tech ventures. Not all of them still around today, some of them are. And I think even today I sort of look at news articles and decisions about how tech companies are developing their strategy, and I think about sort of how they're choosing to scale their companies. And so I think I walked away with a really useful analytical framework for understanding the decisions that tech companies make. It can be a little intimidating to interact with sort of HBS MBAs in the classroom, and it was a little bit different in sort of the virtual setting. But I think overall I got to know a few of the people in the class, and it was always great to hear the other ideas in the course and just how feed those into my own ideas and my own understanding of tech companies.
London, what about you? What has it been like taking classes at HBS?
Yeah, I took a digital innovation and transformation course last semester, which was wonderful. It was my first HBS course, so it was a little bit unnerving at first, being in a classroom full of people who are way older than me and way more experienced, especially having had industry backgrounds and whatnot. But I think it was very fun, and similar to Mason, I feel like the course, the case method that HBS uses is great for understanding particular scenarios. We talked about Domino's as a tech company because they have different AIs that can help detect when pizzas are done cooking, how their app works, and driving and scheduling, and how they basically had to build Uber-like apps before Uber was a thing in order to deliver pizzas. So a lot of different ways of looking at new types of technology within companies that you may or may not know. We had another case about these boat racing groups, and one of them was trying to figure out whether or not to create two of the same boat in order to do testing, or two different boats with two different models, and like the trade-offs between when you decide to do testing in parallel versus trying multiple ideas at once and things like that. I think they find cases that tend to hit at general patterns, and then you can keep on seeing these patterns emerge throughout the cases, which is really fascinating. This semester, I'm taking a public entrepreneurship class, which has been absolutely fantastic for me because I really want to work with governments. And this class is all about how you get businesses to work together with governments. And so we've gone through a bunch of fascinating cases and talked about basically if you want businesses to work with governments, you probably want to try things that might work but might not work, because governments are very much stuck in a mind frame of this should always work. And if you do that, you don't get much innovation. So that's kind of like the main thread in the course right now is if you are going to try things that don't work, how do you like make it so that it seems more likely that they will work, even if there's a chance that they won't? And how do you convince people to do that? And what sorts of things can go wrong, what can go right, etc.
So I'd love to know, you're both seniors, you're both kind of at the end of the fellowship experience. Out of everything that you've done, what was your favorite experience?
So I think my favorite experience from the Tech Fellows program has been the TVI program, so the Tech Ventures Immersion sort of boot camp. I didn't have a lot of familiarity with like how you sort of can like bootstrap a venture, from like interacting with customers, doing like potential customer interviews, and like taking that all the way to like pitching to venture capitalists. So I think it was a really intensive sort of intensive program that gave a lot of insights into sort of like how you actually go through the mechanics of starting a company. But then I also think that was one of the times that or maybe even like the first time that the Tech Fellows really like spent so much time together. We're all very busy, I would say, or normally we're all doing a diverse set of things, but that was one of the times that we all came together and sort of like were with each other for several days. And I feel like I got a lot closer to everyone. So that was one of my favorite things from the program.
I'm going to differentiate between helpful and favorite. I agree with Mason in that I think the TVI was definitely the most helpful for me learning about business stuff. For me personally, my favorite experience was we had a seminar that was loosely based off of the Ready Player One book, but was actually an analogy for Facebook and how Zuckerberg was kind of sucked into Facebook and was running it as a very young kid and drawing parallels between the two. And right after class, we had just had this discussion about like whether or not young people should be running businesses, how the mistakes they can make, how they can recover from them, how not to get sucked into Facebook, etc. And then afterwards, there's just like a bowl of fruit left over. And we were debating, should we take some of the fruit? Should we not? And I just decided to take the entire bowl of fruit and walk out with it all the way back to my dorm and give it back to my dorm mates. And it was so fun just like being with the Tech Fellows, surrounded by people who are doing amazing things in the world, and walking back with a bowl of fruit that people are like taking pieces off of, laughing and chatting all the way back. So I really love the community and getting to know people better. And that was just like one of my highlights of knowing that I had finally found a crew that I very much got along well with.
And then, okay, final question. First, London can answer this, and then Mason. For prospective applicants, what is your best advice for writing that application?
So I've worked with a few people who have applied to the Tech Fellows program. I think one of the most important things is to show why you're passionate about the Tech Fellows program and to be able to have some sort of background or story that you can tell them about what it is that the program would help you to accomplish. So for me, I've been wanting to create robots to help people in natural disasters since I was in second grade. That was my thing. That was the story I told, and I think that went fairly well. I think they're also interested in having people who, I'm not sure how much this will be true in future years, but they also want people who are willing to give feedback and are good like first testers because the program's fairly new. So that's generally the two tips that I gave is like, have a story about how the program would help you make the world better, and then also let them know that you're willing to give feedback and you try to make the program better and improve it.
Yeah, so I would say one of my big tips is to be pretty thoughtful about who you choose to do your letters of recommendation, because I think the program is for people who are not only like good students. I mean, I think all of the tech fellows are pretty good students. They all seem really great and bright to me. But I would also say that it's really important that you have a strong interest in entrepreneurship, and hopefully you can demonstrate through either your past experiences, through extracurriculars or anything like that, or even better, if you can have somebody attest to that on your behalf about how you have like an entrepreneurial like mindset and like how you can help solve problems and things like that. I think that can be really, really helpful in strengthening an application.